Welcome to a beautiful day. I'm normally born to be, but today I'm also corn pop. I am still on this kick of supporting Joe Biden as best I can. Got Mark Putrino with me this morning. He is going to tell you the rest of what's been happening because honestly, he's been dead on what the market's about to do for the last 2 weeks. So I hope you guys have been paying attention and taking notes. Mark, what you got?
Dude, who's Corn Pop?
Corn Pop was the bad dude that ran him down in Delaware when he was a lifeguard, and all the kids used to come up and rub his leg, and that's how he knew about the cockroaches.
Okay.
I'm serious. That's his exact phrasing, man. Look it up.
Oh, poor Joe. Joe's in trouble.
That was a long time ago, man.
You know what? Before we get into the markets, I would just say that, here's the thing about Biden, right? He could have just retired 3 years ago and he could live with all his corrupt millions and that would have been it. But the guy said to himself, you know what? I got all this stuff in my past. It could come out. I don't care. It's my turn to be president. So he put his personal ambitions ahead of the rest of the good of the country. And now we got a guy that, can't even walk up all the stairs to the plane and they got to bring him up through a different entrance now. And, the Democrat thing is like, oh, well, they haven't tied the money to Joe yet. Okay, so they give Hunter Biden tens of millions of dollars for nothing because he's a nice guy. And Hunter even says in his email, I got to give 50% of everything to dad. So, yeah, it's tied to him. And now, the typical Democratic fashion, let's bring something else out about Donald Trump. We've been after the guy for 6 years. We couldn't find anything. So let's just invent stuff. It's bad, but it's all turning because it's getting to the point where, there's going to be some Democrats in the Senate that are like, we got to get rid of this guy. He's just a bad dude.
Yeah, he's the bad thing is imagine the people that have lost their credibility. And the shame is that not a lot of people remember. They don't seem to remember. Everything's given to them so fast now in the digital age that you read a story today, you forget about it in an hour. But people seem to forget about these things. And all these politicians that supported Joe Biden, I got you right there. I'm paying attention.
I've never met Trump, but I know a lot of people that have because I got a good friend who's a member of Wingfoot Country Club or Wingfoot Golf Club. You're not supposed to call it a country club. Right. And he's a member there. And, he also used to live in Greenwich and I grew up in Greenwich. Like Trump would go in every morning to my friend Chris. His family owned a little, I don't even know what you call it, a little newspaper store or whatever. And Trump would go in there every morning and get his breakfast. Everyone who I have ever met that knows Donald Trump says he's a nice guy. He is so misconstrued by the media. They come out and say that he's this racist. I met a guy who was actually, African American guy who worked for Trump, ran into some hard times, and Trump paid off the guy's mortgage without even telling him. The guy was like, having some hard times, and all of a sudden he gets in the mail, he gets the title to his house, and it's like, what just happened? It's like Trump paid off the guy's mortgage just because he wanted to help the guy out. I highly doubt Joe Biden's paid off anyone's mortgages, unless he's got some kind of a kickback.
And so just so you know, Scam, that's true altruism. When you're going to that what Don J. Trump did, that is altruism.
So it's really just a shame that and I think the real reason why why the swamp wants him out is because at one point he was talking about passing a law where if you're a politician, you can't become a lobbyist. And that's how all these people make their money. So that's how they all turn against him. And, you got Joe Biden, who's a public servant for 50 years, and the guy has 3 frigging mansions and estates. He lives like a feudal lord.
Too, though, Mark, he pulled back the covers on this thing so the American people can finally get to see that the levels that they'll go to keep what they've got going on. There's a lot of money that's made, and he interrupted that money supply when he came in and he started talking about the realness of America and that we need to be first because they've been selling us to China since 1996. And that's all there is to it. And I don't care who says anything else about it. They've been going and doing these gigantic speaking fees over there for the last 20 years and pumping it up and telling this. Joe's even was the one that pushed this thing, allowing China to trade on our markets. without having the same accounting standards as our people have in our companies. So you're basically just throwing money into the wind if you're trading China. So I mean, but people do it all day long and make a lot of money doing it. But
I
all of
saw
this
that
is
Hunter
go
told
ahead.
the judge in the thing that he got $600,000. So while you got Joe Biden up there blatantly lying to the country, saying, "Oh, no one's ever made money from China except Trump." All right, well
Right.
now Hunter has admitted he got 700 grand. And the thing about Biden is he's so friggin' dumb. Why would he say I've never talked to my son about business? Why doesn't he just say, "Yeah, we talk"? Okay, next question. You know,
Mark, because he's not planning to make it through this presidency. He knows that he is not able to stand trial. He can't think past yesterday. Seriously. So he knows his dementia was coming on. So he's good. They're never going to do anything to him. Hunter's
it's
going to
just
be the one that has to take a little bit of heat. But I tell
he's
you,
just it's just the hubris, man. You know, he's been getting away with
yeah,
this shit for so long. He figures he can just keep doing it. And before we got into the markets here, I will tell you this: my first memory of Joe Biden was when I was in high school in 1987, where he had to drop out of running for president because he got caught plagiarizing a speech and lying about his school record in law school. And there was this famous thing where some reporter questioned him and Biden went after him like, "Oh, I'm smarter than you. How many academic awards do you have?" It was just the guy is just a real friggin'
he
I
never
mean,
placed over fifth before Obama picked him to be vice president. So I was like, well, damn, Barack's picked somebody that can't possibly challenge him because he's an idiot. So I thought it was in good shape. And they just have this policy of picking idiots for vice president. And then we're stuck. We're like, oh God, we can't get rid of the first guy because now we're stuck with this one. And that and
well,
that
I will
and
I will go on record right now as saying Kamala Harris will be a better president than Joe Biden because maybe she's dumb, but she's not crooked. He's dumb and crooked. All
that's
right.
true. I mean, that's true. All right. Into the markets. Let's give the people what they came for.
All right. Yes. So I think yesterday we saw a change in the trend, and I think we're going to start heading lower. And we had talked about this because we all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, some of these sentiment things we look at, people just got really, really, really bullish, and I don't know why. I mean, I know we had that AI run up in some of the tech stocks, but this is something that we look at here. It's the American Association of Individual Investors, and they interview their members. Now, I don't know how you be. I mean, I guess you could just join. I'm not a member of this association, but they ask their members, "Are you bullish, bearish, or negative?" And up until about I don't know, maybe a month ago, we were running about 30% bullish. Okay, it doesn't show it here because it only shows back for a month. All of a sudden, we jumped up into the 40s. Then we jumped up to 51% bullish. I went over the numbers over like the past 30 years, and there's only been a handful of times where we had over 50% bullish. Now, why is excessive bullishness bearish for the market? This is what we call a contrary indicator. You might think like, oh, hey, everyone's bullish. That's great. But guess what happens when people are very bullish or the overwhelming amount of investors are bullish? What do? They spend their money, they invest their funds. And when they run out of that money, when they're done investing, the market runs out of buyers. And the only place it can go is lower. Now, there's a famous story, which is probably true, famous legend, where Joe Kennedy, the father of John Kennedy, he was back in the 20s, he was what they called like a market operator. Right? It's like the equivalent of what would be like a modern day hedge fund manager. So anyway, the story is that he's on his way to work and he gets his shoe shined, and the shoe shine boy starts giving him stock tips. So he goes to the office and he sells all his stocks and he goes short on everything. And then the market crashes and he becomes even more incredibly wealthy than he already was. Now, does he have an issue with shoe shine boys? No. I think the idea is that, oh, okay, if people who don't typically buy stocks, like shoe shine boys, are buying stocks, they're the last in the food chain. There's no one left after them to push the market any higher. Now, I'm not Joe Kennedy, but I have my own story about that. In December of 21, right at the end of the year, right when the market was peaking from our 10 or 12-year bull market, I had a leaky pipe and I had a plumber come over. It was a young guy, probably about 30. And he sees my computers and everything. And he's like, "Oh, are you a day trader?" And we start talking. I told him what I did. And he said that he had a friend who was a plumber and a friend who was an HVAC guy. and they each left their jobs to become full-time day traders. All right. Now, nothing against these guys. I'm from a blue collar family. I'm not putting them down. But when people like HVAC guys and plumbers, when people who don't typically buy stocks are buying stocks, there's no one left behind them. They're the last in the food chain. In order for the market to go up, there's got to be people buying. And when the market runs out of buyers, the only place it can go is lower. So that was like the perfect contrarian signal. So here we are. As of last week, we got up to 51% bullish. There's also this other thing, which I don't really look at it because I basically think CNN is like a friggin' evil propaganda institution. But this is up to extreme greed, and it's been up here for a while. So it's kind of the same thing. It's a different way of looking at sentiment. So that was one of the reasons why I thought that the market was going to turn. And it looks like it has. I mean, we're looking up a little bit this morning, but here's the S&P from yesterday. Now, this can end up being what we call a reversal day. All right. Sometimes, well, the markets are always trending, right? They're always going either up, down, or sideways. When they're going up, the bulls are in charge. When it's going down, the bears are in charge. When it's going sideways, they're pretty much equal. All right. Now, sometimes the trend changes or the leadership changes over kind of a long period of time, and it's a slow change. That shows up on a chart as something we would call like a rounded top or a rounded bottom. Sometimes we get a change that happens in a few days or maybe a week. That's something that we would call maybe say a V. As a matter of fact, if we look right here in the S&P, I can't believe they got rid of the arrows. That really is kind of distressing to me. I don't know why they would do that. But anyway, all right. So here we have what you could argue is a rounded bottom, right? It's a reversal pattern. It took the leadership went from the bears to the bulls, and it took, a while, maybe a month, shows up as a rounded pattern. Then sometimes we get the trend change that happens in a matter of, a few days. And that shows up as a V pattern, or in this case, a V bottom. These patterns are just illustrations of psychology and illustrations of changes. Now, sometimes we get a change of the trend, a change of the leadership. I'm kind of out of it, man. It was like 102 degrees yesterday. I went jogging. It probably wasn't a good idea.
That's not smart.
Well, got to get back in shape, man. Right?
No, I'm 100% with you, but 102 degrees, you shouldn't be jogging in that kind of weather.
Yeah, the ozone is just like you could just see the haze. But anyway, sometimes you get a change that happens in one day, and that's what we call a reversal day, and that could have happened yesterday. So we got the blue team in charge, and if you were to look at the market yesterday at the beginning of the day, you would have said, "Oh, it's going to be another up day." A red candle is a day where the open is higher than the close. So in the morning, it looked like it was going to be another up day. But by the close, and this is the S&P we're looking at, by the close, the bears had taken over and pushed us all the way back. And we closed at a lower level than Wednesday's open. So in the candlestick lingo, we would call this a bearish engulfing pattern. In Western lingo, we would call this an outside reversal day. But it doesn't matter what you call it. The point is that it looks like we could have reversed our trend in one day. Now, we're trading up fairly well this morning, but I don't know. You got to have a little bit of patience. I just think this is negative action, and there's going to be some kind of follow through. So we've been watching particularly the financial sector and the tech sector because they each looked what I would say they looked vulnerable. So let's look at our tech sector and see how that acted yesterday. All right. Now, once again, we're toying with this 177 level. Now, this is an important level, and this goes back to here. Now, it's really, if you want to be a successful trader, you really need to understand where these important price levels are. All right. For some reason, sometimes there are price levels that are more important than others, and that's just how it is. Why did this reverse when it got to 177 back in December of 21? So this is actually right when the plumber was at my house, like right around here. I don't know, but I know why we hit resistance here in June around 177, and it's because it was a peak back here. So a lot of times markets run into resistance at former peaks, and there's a reason for that. And it has to do, I should get rid of this 4 months because that's confusing. It has to do with investment psychology. Chart reading is about understanding psychology and supply and demand. Some analysts, they just look and they say, oh, this is this pattern, this is that pattern. They don't really understand the dynamics. Why do we have resistance at a level that was resistance before? And the answer is, hey, Sean, how are you? The answer is, well, there are people that bought back here who regret their decision to do so once the price gets lower. And they tell themselves, if this ever gets back up to my level, I'm going to sell and get out at break even. So you got these remorseful buyers placing sell orders. And if there's enough of them, the level that was resistance becomes resistance again. So it's not a coincidence that this ran out of steam at 177. It's not a coincidence either that 177 has become support now. Now, why would a level that was resistance convert it to support? Well, this is because of seller's remorse. There are people who sold who regret doing so when the price goes higher. And a lot of these people tell themselves, I'm going to buy my shares back if I can get them for the same price I sold them at. So if you have enough remorseful sellers placing buy orders, the level that was resistance turns into support. And that's what happened here. And here we are again in the pre-market. I mean, we're trading up pretty good, up 90 basis points, but we're still toying with this 177 level. And I mean, to me, this action is kind of weak. So I do think that the market's going lower. But anyway, so this is some weak action here in tech, right? Now, the tech sector is pretty much Microsoft and Apple are half of it. Let's see what Microsoft did. Yeah, I mean, look at that. That's some pretty darn weak action there on Microsoft.
Listen, there's a super gap on RTX this morning. You need to look at that when you get a chance.
RTX, was that Raytheon?
Yeah, Raytheon, yeah.
Or which is now
RTX Corporation.
I don't know why they changed the name, but
because they got the alien spacecraft, dude.
Yeah, man. I got to tell you though, that dude seemed like he was kind of crazy.
He does. But we'll see what happens.
Hey, listen, man. Barack Obama himself, President of the United States, said there's stuff flying around up there and we don't know what it is. So, I just have to think that if the aliens wanted to take us over, they would have done so by now.
Yes.
It's like if you can fly through these wormholes in space and you can go faster than the speed of light, why do they have to keep anally probing women that live in trailer parks? I mean, seriously, like isn't their extent of scientific knowledge like pretty much done at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. So it's supposedly, I was listening to this David Greer guy. He's been doing this for the longest, but supposedly those are false flags that are done by the malicious military industrial complex, the people that actually have the whatever they are.
What, anal probes?
No, not anal probes, the spaceships. Supposedly there's this cabal, right, that is out to take over the world, and they're above the governments, and they have this technology. And this is just another one of those things to make us all freak the hell out so that we're like, okay, please take our money and lock us down and put us in our home.
They could be friendly aliens. Maybe they're coming here to help us.
Listen, Mark, okay, let's be logical, right? If there's all these stars out here, there's got to be alien life. So if we've seen aliens since the 1950s, they say they've seen alien spacecraft. Them son of a bitches have been here for a long time. So if they wanted to kill us, they would have already killed us. They probably like anthropologists down here checking this out to see just how stupid we are. And now they found out we have 37 genders when there's really only 2 sexes. And they're like, what the hell? And then they've left. They just said, let's go. We can't stay here anymore.
Well, I don't know, man. I guess we'll know soon enough. All right, back to our levels. I'm glad you brought up this RTX because this shows you how, what's the right word I'm looking for? Potentially profitable trading can be if you understand where these levels are. So now Raytheon came out with some news the other day, and I'm not exactly sure what it was. It was something to do with like Pratt and Whitney. They got to like recall their engines or whatever. But anyway, so the stock goes, craters and like collapses. It goes from 96 down to around 80, whatever. Look where it found a bottom. Did it find a bottom at some, speaking of anal probes, did it find a bottom at like some random level? No. Look at where it found the bottom. Right there. The same levels that were support back here in September. Market memory. Some price levels are more important than others. For whatever reason it is, 8150 happens to be an important level for this particular stock. And this is where we found a bottom on Wednesday. What stock did we look at yesterday where it was found support or found resistance at the same penny level, the same sense that it was? Gosh, what stock was it? I can't remember. I should have written it down.
I wasn't completely with you during the second half of the other class.
Yeah. Well, all right. Anyway, so it's not a coincidence that this is where we found a bottom. Okay. There are some price levels that are more important than others. And if you don't accept that, and if you don't drill it into your head, you'll never be successful, or you're going to have a really hard time.
But
Hey, Maddie,
too, the move from 85 to 90 there is a quick move. The last time that it did it back in September and November.
yeah, we got our fast move down, fast move up.
Yep.
All right, so we looked at tech. Next thing we're going to look at is healthcare because that's our second biggest sector. XLV
was RTX, Matty. Raytheon.
The former Raytheon.
Yeah, the former Raytheon.
All right, so now here's healthcare, second biggest sector, and pretty decent sell-off yesterday, coming back a teeny bit this morning. But again, where did we find resistance? At the level that was resistance before. People buy here, and they regret buying, and when the price gets back to where they can get out of break even, you get people that want to sell. So it's not a coincidence that this is where we found resistance. We found resistance at a former peak. Now, how can you utilize this knowledge? Well, you buy something, it's going up. You're wondering, where should my sell target be? Just say theoretically you bought XLV down to 130 and you tell yourself, you know what? I think if this thing gets to 138, I'm going to sell it. Well, you're just guessing. You're just pulling a number out of the air. If you looked at the chart and you said, oh, look at that, around 136 or 135.75, there was resistance before. There's a good chance there is going to be resistance again. So you could say, all right, I'm going to place my sell order around 135. Now, it's not as good as selling at 138, but it's better than missing it because there's a good chance that this thing just rolls right over and starts to go lower. When a stock is going higher, or I should say market, but stock is really my kind of de facto, but it applies to all markets. When a stock is going higher, there are investors who want to sell, and they're watching this thing, and they notice, oh, it's not going up anymore. Why do markets go up? Well, because you don't have enough sellers. You don't have enough supply to fill all the demand. So the buyers are forced to pay premiums, and that forces an uptrend. When we get to a resistance level, the tide turns, and all of a sudden there is enough supply, or there's enough sellers to fill all the demand. So this price stops going higher. So these traders are watching this thing go higher, and all of a sudden they realize it's not going higher anymore. What is going on? Oh, there must be new sellers coming into the market. That's why it's not going higher. So what do I have to do? I have to reduce the price I'm willing to sell at because the buyers are going to go whoever is willing to sell at the lowest price. So you get these sellers start to undercut each other, and you get the snowball effect. You get to resistance and you sell off. It has nothing to do with the news. It's just because of market psychology or investment psychology. So this was a pretty ugly move yesterday. We're really not coming back at all. Let's take a look at Carvana. Matty B's asking. CVNA.
You guys have been killing this stock, Matty.
Yeah, look at that. I mean, seriously. That's not a, I mean, so it's not a coincidence that that's where we found support. It's at the level that was resistance. Now, this was kind of interesting, and I know that a lot of our students did very well on this. And just to kind of refresh your memory, they came out with this news and they said, all right, well, the people that lent them money agreed to better terms. All right. They agreed to take less money back. or reduce the interest rates or whatever it was. Now, and also too, when the market rallied on this news, look at where we found resistance, a level that was resistance before. So it's not a coincidence. There tends to be resistance at former resistance levels. It's just there's resistance at former peaks. So anyway, you got to ask yourself, wait a second. These people lent Carvana this money, and now they're willing to take less money back. Why would they do that? So the street or whatever, the Reddit crowd perceived this to be good news, but it turns out it wasn't. If say someone owes you $100 and they come back to you and they say, "Listen, dude, I can't pay you $100, but I'm going to pay you 90. All right, I'm gonna pay you 90. Well, you might say to yourself, I'm going to demand $100, but maybe this person's going bankrupt. Maybe I should just take what I can get now, right? Maybe I'll take my $90. So the fact that their creditors are giving them better terms is actually a bad thing. It's like, what's going on, dude? You guys can't pay back your loan, so you got to have a break. And sure enough, the stock has completely fallen apart since then. Well, just keep checking in every day, Sean, because sooner or later we're going to have a subscription site, and it's not going to be much. I think we're going to charge a couple $100 a month.
But it's going to be daily content every day.
Yeah, and check out our website too, stockmarketjobber.com.
There's a lot of market lessons on there, Sean. A lot of good information, man. You just got to dig through it.
Yeah. So so check it out. And also too, hopefully my idea is that this becomes to the point where I can dedicate myself to it full time. I got a couple other things I'm doing now, but in a perfect world, I'd like to kind of leave those things behind and just focus on this. But we got to get up to a certain level of traction before we get there. And
hey, AutoNation is another good one if you pull it up after you're done with Carvana. AN. Yep. I saw this last week and I didn't trade it, and I was so pissed at myself.
Yeah.
It was stretched.
So we can see here, like, look at that, right? Oops. Horizontal, right? Yeah. So you got our resistance become support. So it's all about the levels, man. But anyway, let me kind of finish these sectors here.
Yeah, sorry, Mark.
So now financials had a pretty nasty reversal as well. And it's kind of really not coming back. So once again, where did we run into resistance? At a level that was support. So there's people who bought back here who tell themselves, damn, I made a mistake when the price goes lower. And they go to sell their shares to get out at break even if they can when the price gets back up to their level. And what was support turned into resistance. So weak action in healthcare, weak action in tech, weak action in financials. My guess is that there's some follow through. I would be pretty surprised to see the market kind of bounce back. But you got to remember, we were rallying under this kind of narrative of like, oh, the Fed's going to stop raising rates. The Fed might even cut rate or reduce rates by the end of the year. And, when Powell came out the other day, he didn't say that. He basically said, we're going to keep raising rates. That's when he uses the term restrictive. That's what he means. So I don't know why people are going under this narrative that they're not going to, or that they're going to stop raising rates. I mean, oil is up 20% in a month, and that is, that's hugely inflationary. The economy is doing well. The GDP came in above estimates. That's inflationary. So I just think it's I just think people are just grabbing at straws when they start saying, oh, hey, man, Fed's going to stop raising rates. The Fed's going to start cutting rates. In long term, it's probably bullish that they should have been more aggressive right at the beginning, but, they're incompetent. And now we know that Janet Yellen was eating mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, when she was in China.
Isn't that shit crazy? It blew me away when Maria Bartiromo said that.
Well, maybe that's why she did her bowing.
Her triple bow.
Let's see. I got it.
Listen,
I just
J.P.
like to
Morgan.
watch this.
I trade with the Fisher Transform, but J.P. Morgan is set up yesterday after it broke that trend line with the Fisher Transform to just it's perfect.
All right, hold on. I just got to watch this because this cracks me up. Okay, here we
Yeah,
go.
go ahead.
All right.
I mean, hell, she was bowing before she even got to him.
I got to watch that again, man. It's like in the what do they call those things? The birds
The
that go
amazing
down,
drinking bird.
right? Like in The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, everybody, right? They don't bow in China. Bowing is done in Japan and it's done in Korea. They don't bow in China. So maybe she's so effed up on mushrooms she doesn't even know where she is. Okay, I've been there. I'm not criticizing. I did follow Grateful Dead around the country. Maddie B says, "Is that a false break?" Maybe. It's kind of hard to say. It's like there's no like real official definition of what's a false breakout. But yeah, I mean, it looked like it was going to break out. But it's not really a big degree, right? This line is 35.30, and we got up to 35.60. So I don't know if it was a false breakout, but I mean, I guess you could say that it looked like it was going to get through resistance, and now it's reversed. All right, what's next? So we looked at healthcare, we looked at financials, we looked at tech, consumer discretionary. Put on here, yeah. I mean, ugly day there, down 1%. It's coming back a little bit this morning, but like this. I mean, I guess you could say that this is a potential false breakout. The false breakouts are when it looks like something's going to get above resistance, but then it just quickly reverses and comes back. And a lot of times this happens because people place what we call buy stop orders, right? A buy stop is a buy order that's placed above the market. So say the stock is trading at 172. Someone might say, you know what, if this gets to 175, I'm going to buy it. So you might say, well, if it's at 172, why don't they just buy it at 172? Why do they want to pay 175? And the idea is that if we get above this clear resistance, it's going to keep going. As long as we're below resistance, maybe it's just dead money. But if we get above resistance, the idea is it's going to keep going. So people place these buy stop orders above resistance levels. Now, when we get above the resistance and the market gets to those levels, these buy stop orders get triggered. If there's no follow through, and that's the only thing that's taken the market up is just these buy stop orders, the breakout tends to reverse really quickly, and this is what we call a false breakout. And I mean, that's a big move lower. Yesterday we had some really weak action. So yeah, I mean, I guess you can say that like this here looks like I don't know. I mean, we're really just talking about semantics, but a lot of times when it looks like something's going to break out and it just reverses, that in and of itself is a good contrarian signal. False breakouts tend to happen at the beginning of new downtrends, but regardless, that's some ugly action there. XLI, industrials, some pretty weak action there. We finally broke our uptrend line. I mean, just
XLU and P look the same exact way too.
Which one?
XLU and XLP look the exact same way.
Wow, look at that. That's a nasty reversal there.
Yeah, XLU looks the same way as well.
And I would say that this was kind of a flight to safety for whatever reason. You had this money pouring into staples and healthcare and utilities, and those are the sectors that are considered to be safe. Wow, look at that. That's a nasty reversal there. So this right here, right? And a flight to safety is when people take their money out of things they perceive to be risky and they go into things that they perceive to be less risky. And these flight to safeties tend to happen right before we get sell-offs. So that's another reason why I'm bearish, is because money was just pouring into healthcare and to staples and into utilities. And once the flight to safety ends, those stocks tend to go down too. In a really bad bear market, there's nothing that's going to not go down. So, between the sentiment, between the fact that, really bullish sentiment, we got some sectors that technically look vulnerable. We had what looked to be like a flight to safety kind of going on. That's why I'm bearish, and I'm still bearish, and I still think we go lower. Now, if you're not an options trader, there's inverse ETFs that you could buy, ETFs that go higher if the market goes lower. For example, if we go back to our financials, just say this starts to keep going lower, all right? A way to trade it is there's this ETF called, or the symbol is FAZ, F-A-Z. This is a leveraged ETF that's an inverse ETF. This is designed to go 3 times the opposite direction of the financials. So just say theoretically financials go down 2%. This will be up 6%. You don't really have to be afraid of bear markets. I mean, we don't want them, but we can trade them. And in a lot of ways, it's easier, in my opinion, to make money in a bear market than in a bull market, because in a bear market, they go down fast. Stocks go down faster than they go up because people sell based upon fear, and people buy on hope. And fear is a more prominent emotion than hope. So remember, this is inverse. So this is the banking crisis. I mean, this thing was up 50% when all the banks, when Silicon Valley and First Republic went under. This thing was up 50% in a matter of days. So there's, you don't have to put your head in the sand. You can
exciting times.
I'll tell you, man. It's when I first became a trader, they didn't have all these ETFs. Now it's like you can make money in anything. It used to be if you wanted to make money in a down market, you had to trade futures or options. Now it's like, all right, well, you can just buy an inverse ETF. And if you want to get really crazy, you could buy options on one of these leveraged ETFs, and then you could really kill it. So here's oil. Yeah, so this is a big move here. We're up 20%. Pretty soon you're going to start seeing this at the pump, paying more money. I think I filled up my truck. I think it was 380 last time I went to the gas station. Fortunately, I don't drive a lot. I work from home. My wife works from home. So I don't. So it doesn't really affect me. But people that drive a lot, I mean, it's a big it's a big move lower. And then on the gas pump, someone put the sticker of Joe Biden saying, "I did that." All right, so that's oil. Let's look at our natural gas.
It's been range bound for a long time.
Yeah, natural gas is kind of in a range here. Now, here's another thing where you don't need to trade natural gas, but you could trade the ETF. If this support breaks, there's a good chance we're going to go lower. If this resistance breaks, there's a good chance we're going to go higher. Once we're in a range, right, we break out one way or the other. If you want to play it on the downside, say natural gas goes lower, there's this ETF here. The symbol is COLD, K-O-L-D. And this is designed to move inversely to natural gas. So natural gas goes down, this goes up, right? Don't be afraid of commodities. There are ways that you can trade commodities in the equity markets, in the ETF world. Now, here is something interesting. Here's copper, and this might break out. This is what we call the ascending triangle pattern, and these tend to be fairly accurate, or I should say reliable. So we got this clear level of resistance where people are. All right, Sean, let me know when you're having a party. I'll come by. We got a clear level of resistance. So that means the sellers are hanging out. So the sellers are just like, yeah, all right, whatever, man. If the buyers come to me, I'll sell. If not, and I miss it, that's cool. I don't really care. But as time is going by, you have buyers are getting more aggressive. These markets go in peaks and valleys, right? And when you have a valley that forms at a higher level than the previous valley, like this is a higher level than here. This is a higher level than here. We call this higher lows. Now, what does this show us? Well, it shows us that the buyers are getting more aggressive. Buyers are willing to pay higher prices. At the same time, you got the sellers who are just kind of staying in place. So think about it. Complacent sellers, aggressive buyers, that sets the stage for the market to move higher. Now, if this does break out, there are some ETFs that you could buy. What is the cut? Is it CPTR? I think CPTR. No, that's not it. Let me just look here. And you could also buy companies that are all right. Yeah, COPX or CPER. That doesn't really. Yeah, so this you could buy this, the United States Copper Index Fund. Doesn't follow it perfectly, but if copper goes higher, this is going to go higher. Now remember, this is a futures market, so this is open right now. So this is current. This is trades in the equity market, so this isn't open yet. But when the market opens, this will be up because this tracks copper. So again, the moral to the story is don't be put off if we talk about commodities, because you can get exposure to commodities through the ETF markets. If you want to get exposure to oil, you got this ETF, USO, United States Oil Fund. So this is going to track oil. Again, it doesn't do it perfectly, but for our intents and purposes, it's more than adequate. All right, so let's see. Did we go over? Oh, let's look at the energy sector. That's XLE.
Oh, you have SCCO, which is Southern Copper Corporation, if you want to trade a company as well.
Yeah, like that's going to track the price of copper, because a commodity-based company, Southern Copper, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? Most of their assets are copper. So if the price of copper goes up, their company becomes more valuable. This is our energy sector, and as we can see here, this is another example of really precise levels, right? For whatever reason, this 8750 level is important. So there's probably a good chance we get up there and we stall out. I mean, it looks like that's what's going to happen. I mean, we got pretty close, right? I mean, yesterday got up to 8670, trading down a little bit this morning. But I just can't emphasize enough. If you know where these price levels are, it's going to make your job a lot easier. So it helps you from guessing. The best traders let the market tell them what to do. How does the market talk? Well, the market talks by how it acts when it gets to these levels. Just remember, oversold stocks that get to support tend to bounce. Overbought stocks that get to resistance tend to sell off. Pretty darn simple. All right, let's go see what's going on over here in the news. An exodus of talent perils Goldman Sachs' overall. A wave of departures. Wow. If you're leaving Goldman Sachs, you got to have a good reason, because they make a lot of money over there. Of course, they work a lot of hours. An exodus of executives from Goldman Sachs Asset Management Division. Now, Goldman Sachs is a lot of going on over there, right? They're an investment bank. They have a broker-dealer. Their asset management division is the people that actually manage money. They have clients' money, and they decide what to buy and what to sell. Look at that. 6 of 11 Goldman partners named in a company memo have left. Wow. I wonder if they're getting pushed out. When I was in business school 25 years ago, it's like all anyone wanted to do was work at Goldman Sachs. I mean, that was like, because that was before they were public. And if you got into Goldman Sachs and you became a partner, you're making millions of dollars a year, like, millions, like 3 million, 5 million, if not more. And, but, like the guys I know that work over there, they're there 100 hours a week. I don't know if it's changed, but, they gotta check out your wife, make sure she fits in the niche, So it's like I don't even know what the right word.
Kind of culty.
Pretty much, but people put up with it because they get paid so much. Like, I was at a trader dinner one time, and we meet for dinner around 6, whatever, have cocktails, eat dinner. Finally, it's like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then this dude I know from Goldman finally shows up, and it's like, where you been? And he was like, well, I was, at the office, and like, doing what? pretending I'm busy. And it's like no one wants to be the first person to leave, right? So they all just kind of hang around and pretend they're busy, looking at charts and doing this and doing that. So, I mean, you make a lot of money, but it is your life. But whatever. I mean, teach their own, I guess. But it's really changed a lot because now it's a public company. Oh, you see this? Facebook bow to White House pressure, remove COVID post. There is so much freaking going on in the political world, man. So you have proof that, and it's not surprising that the White House is censoring people's speech. They're telling Twitter, don't put this out. They're telling Facebook, don't put that out. They really, really, they changed history. They changed by burying the Hunter Biden laptop story. Five out of six people who voted, or I should say 1 out of 6 people that voted for Biden have said they would not have voted for him if they knew about the Hunter Biden thing. And that would have altered the election. So because the media suppressed this, and because people like Mark Zuckerberg think that they're smarter than everyone else, and he's got the entitled right to put his finger on the, changing history, we get this corrupt president whose policies have literally led to war and famine. The war in Ukraine didn't cause inflation. Inflation caused the war because when oil went from $32 a barrel when Biden was elected up to $100 a barrel, when it got to 100, that's when the war started. Oil had tripled by the time the war started. So don't believe this, like, the war caused inflation. Remember when he was doing the Putin's price hike?
Yes. The whole world was doing Putin's price hike when the whole thing was not that.
It's just disgraceful. I mean, it's really, and it's not a Democratic or Republican thing. I mean, I know people that are Democrats that despise Biden. They're like, what the hell is this guy up to, man?
Yeah. Well, hopefully they don't vote for him again just because they vote for D's and vote for R's.
He's not gonna. He's done, man. He's not gonna finish his term. All right. Did you see this? If you get bit by one of these ticks, you get allergic to meat.
No way. Well, that might as well put a nail in me. I'm done. And what kind of tick is that?
And they're down by where you live, man.
Oh boy.
Alpha gal syndrome. Alpha gal, a red meat allergy linked to tick bite. So my understanding is that if you get bit by this tick, you become allergic to meat.
I don't know, man. I've had quite a few ticks in my life, and I love a good burger.
Oh wait, so actually, all right. So they're up here. Now this is kind of interesting, right? Long Island. Okay. You know me. I'm all about conspiracy theory, right?
But don't you have Lyme disease? Don't you have Lyme, Connecticut? Is where Lyme disease comes from?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Y'all are tick infested.
So Lyme, Connecticut, is right across the Sound from Plum Island. Now, Plum Island is an island out on Long Island Sound where they do all kinds of biological warfare type stuff. I don't think they do it anymore. But a lot of people think that this is where Lyme disease came from. If you go over Long Island Sound and you go north probably about 10 or 15 miles, so that's it right there. So that's Lyme, Connecticut is right up in here. So maybe this is something else that came out of Plum Island that's now down in Long Island. So here's Long Island. Oh, you know what I heard too, which is kind of interesting, is that old people in Long Island are 70% more likely to get Alzheimer's disease than people in other parts of the country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dude, I heard that on the radio yesterday. So there's something going on out there. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's other things. Maybe it's pollution or whatever. But
that's a bad way to go. I don't know that I would want to live on Long Island.
I can't stand Long Island. I hate going out there. That's where my wife's family from. They're so crowded. The roads are so crowded and so freaking busy. And Robert Moses was this guy who basically was a planner who did all the highways and so forth. And you could see all these highways, how crooked they are. Yeah. They weren't built by science. They were built by if you were rich and influential, they would bypass you. If you weren't and you were a farmer or whatever, they would just go right through your property. So you got these roads that were all built by politics. This is where my wife's sister lives, down here in Iceland. So you got all these like roads that are not designed by science, so it's just continuous traffic. I mean, it's like we went down to my nephew's wedding a few weeks ago, and when I was driving back at night, it was, dude, it's just ridiculous how dangerous it is. I mean, first of all, it's like 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, and you would think it was rush hour. People, people don't let you merge. It's just it's. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if people get killed on the Long Island Expressway every day.
Wow.
But anyway, so Robert Moses built all these roads, and when you go out there and you go under these parkways, they have these really low bridges. They're like, some of them are literally just like 8 feet of clearance. And the reason why they did that is because he cut deals that the people out here didn't want all the riffraff from New York City coming out in buses.
Yeah.
So they made the bridges so low that the buses couldn't fit underneath them. So that's why you got all these really low bridges. And what's kind of funny is I grew up in Greenwich. This is where I live here. This is in Stanford. Part of Greenwich, what they now called Old Greenwich, there's this beach here. I mean, I know it's probably hard to see, but it's a beach called Todd's Point, which is like this beautiful beach. But anyway, they used to call it what do they call it? Sound Shore or Sound View. No, Sound Beach. Sorry, they used to call it Sound Beach. And when they built the interstate highway system, they changed the name from Sound Beach to Old Greenwich because they didn't want people driving on the highway and saying, "Oh, Sound Beach, let's get off here and go to the beach." So they changed the name of that part of the town. All right, let's see.
That's funny.
So that's wild. I mean, you got to think from an evolutionary point of view. What would be in it for a tick to make someone become allergic to meat?
Well, I mean, what would be in it for the greenies for people to be allergic to meat?
It's I don't know, man. It's pretty wild.
Well, I mean, it stops us all from eating meat.
Yeah, then maybe the tick has more animals that it could go after.
Well, or the ticks, maybe the animals that they're injecting over there on the island, everybody has it. All animals have ticks, just natural. And so that tick gets on a leaf and floats across the sound and bites a tick in lime and, or an animal in lime, and then it spreads. And, I don't know. I don't agree with this biological research stuff. I think that we're playing God or we're trying to, and I don't think we should be manipulating things to make things nastier than they are natural.
Yeah, well, COVID's a perfect example, right? I mean,
yeah,
but that was just due to sloppy conditions where they let that thing escape out of the lab. But what's real scary is that who knows, the next thing that gets out of a lab over in China might even be worse. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, and it's probably probable, especially because we haven't even questioned like, oh, where did this come from?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I don't see the majority of people in this country masking up and locking down again. I think that if they came out and said that shit after it's been proven to be a lie, that they're going to have serious trouble if they try that control shit on the American people again.
Yeah, well,
on the world, period. I mean, they didn't need to lock us all down for 12 days or 15 days or however long it was. Felt like forever.
Well, I think that that's kind of proof that they knew it was man-made because they wanted to be overly careful. Because if all of a sudden all these people started dropping dead, and if it actually came out like, oh, this escaped from a Chinese laboratory, I mean, think about it. Like the whole Democratic mantra was like, oh, it came from the wet market. Because this is how sick people are. Because Donald Trump said it was the China virus. Yep. And keep in mind, viruses are typically named after where they come from. So that's not a racist thing to say. All right.
Spanish flu.
Yeah. Sorry. The Lyme disease came from Lyme, Connecticut. Right. They name diseases after where they came from. So when Trump calls it the China virus, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're racist. We can't call it the China virus. We got to call it COVID, blah, 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 blah. So it's, Trump's got to be wrong. Oh, it came from a wet market. It came from bats that live in caves that are 200 feet below the earth that are 100 miles away from the laboratory. So Jon Stewart said it best. It's like the lab is called the Lab for the Research of Coronaviruses. It says it right in the name. The first people to actually die from COVID were scientists that worked at that laboratory.
Working on COVID.
Yeah, so it's like, but because people have such bad Trump derangement syndrome, it's like they can't accept that. It's like whatever Trump says, it's wrong. Donald Trump's going to put out, this house is on fire, and Trump's going to take a fire hose and put the fire out. Oh, we got to let the building burn down.
Well, after they put 3 more felony charges on him last night, I think he walks in a giant landslide.
It's like, when is this shit gonna end, dude? It's like they've been going after this guy for 6 years, and
41 charges now.
Now they have to make up stuff about him. Everything they say about him ends up being wrong. Remember the P tape? Oh,
yep.
There's my father's a big Democrat. I remember him calling me and being like, oh yeah, they got him. They got a tape of a Russian prostitute peeing on him. That was false. How about this? Out of all this stuff about Trump derangement syndrome, I think the dumbest thing has to be, and there's a lot of them, but the dumbest thing has to be when they had that stupid girl up there, the whole January 6th, thing, which is another crock, saying, oh, Trump attacked the Secret Service guys
and grabbed the steering wheel,
take the limousine and drive it over to where the riot was. So I'm supposed to believe that Donald Trump attacked the Secret Service so he could drive the limousine. Now, never mind that all the Secret Service guys that were there swore under oath that didn't happen. There are Trump derangement people that still believe that. Like, what did he do? Reach through the little window, like from the back seat, and try to strangle
11 feet. Yeah, 11 feet away in that big giant vehicle with support and glass all around him. He jumped in and grabbed the steering wheel.
I mean, you can despise Donald Trump. How could you believe that? That's just so frigging dumb.
Mark, how could the people in New York keep electing AOC? That woman is a joke. She'll laugh in front of their face, and she keeps getting reelected. How does Gavin Newsom get elected? How does any of this shit go down and keep going down? I'm telling you.
Remember when AOC, when they all pretended they were handcuffed?
Yes. Listen, I'm going to ask you something, and not to dig deep on Barry Brock, but do you remember when he was running against Mitt Romney, and 3 days before the election, he was playing basketball and he was all cool and happy, and he wasn't even worried about it? And then 57 precincts in Philadelphia, not one single person voted for Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I don't, but I'm not surprised.
That is when it started. That's when they tested out the system. I'm telling you. He knew he was elected before he even went in before he even had to run for office again. And that was with Criminal Joe as his partner. So, I mean, this whole thing has been set up for a long time. And they learned it from the Clintons, and they just tried to perfect it. And Barry would have got away with it. Joe's just too crooked.
Yeah. I mean, Barry's a lot smarter than Joe is, which
absolutely
isn't really saying much.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. Mark, you got anything else?
Nah, that's it. I'm going to it's my father's birthday this weekend, so I'm going to go down to Jersey and hang out with him. Nice. But yeah, no, that's it, man. I hope everyone let's just take a look at Spy before we get going, just to see if anything's changed.
We had a Falcon 9 last night at 11 o'clock, and we got the Falcon Heavy tonight, which is like 3 of them. It's so cool to watch these rockets go off, man.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. All right, it looks like we're kind of right where we were before. I do think that we're going to go lower. Maybe it doesn't happen today, but I would say my short-term opinion over the next few weeks is we go lower for reasons that I talked about. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, and I will see you on Monday.
Have a great day, guys.
Have a great weekend. Thank you, everyone.